Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Smart Networker. My name is Dave Rolfe, and it is Happy Turkey Day in Canada, and it's October the 10th, which is also Pay Notification Day. And this is one of my favorite days of the month because I get to see how much money I earned from the previous month. And I have to tell you, I've been doing this for 32 years. Looking at this date as that, because it did a number of things. And it's going to be part of what I'm going to talk about today. I've as you know, and again, I'll reset this up. I'm rewriting a book. I'm going over all the information that I put out there. The prime intention of doing this activity is to give you information, data, experiences, so that you can think, plan, and strategize how to get what you want. And this is a very important aspect of playing this game that we play and being involved in this business that we're involved with. Now, what's fascinating about all of it is and how it basically all works. It's on a concept called agreement, and it's that agreement that gets created that then becomes the reality of the circumstance or the situation, and reality is then perceived, which is an ability you have. You have the ability to perceive what's in front of you, what you experience, how you feel, all of those very interesting perceptions that we have as individuals. And in my studies, we have actually 57 different perceptions. And it's truly amazing that everything that we're involved with is basically a perception. So I was watching the chit chat, and this was very interesting, of the event in Toronto that went on this past week with our CEO and president, and the responses from the individual and what went on and the perceptions that the individuals that were there had. And now what's interesting is you could look at that and understand what happened, and you could understand what happened if you had similar experiences to relate that to. If not, then it would be hard to understand what went on. You could look at it and say, okay, this was this group went to this city and they had this meeting and their president talked and exposed some information and helped some people, and it was a nice day and people drove a long way to get there, those kind of things. And so if you were an outsider and you had never experienced any of this before, it would be okay, that's an interesting day. I've had similar days or I've done other things. Now, the reason why I'm using that or setting this up this way is because this is your whole objective. In other words, your whole objective with somebody else is to create that reality so that they will engage and be part of what you want. And it's fascinating in the sense of, okay, a concept. Now, one of the things that we'll use this as an example also. One of the areas that many of us run into when we talk about it says, oh, is that network marketing MLM thing? Oh, yeah, that's a pyramid scheme. It doesn't work. I'm sure we've all heard that. I'm sure we've all had some kind of experience. Well, so that perception was based on something. What was it based on? Was it something they saw, something they heard, something they participated in, something they failed at, something that they saw somebody else do, another experience? It's been said that the millennials don't want to do what their parents did because they watched their parents go through a lot of stuff that they don't want to deal with. And so therefore they're marching to a different drum. Well, man, I remember when the Rolling Stones came out and the Beatles came out, and there was Woodstock and there was all this stuff, and Haight-Ashbury and Hippieville and long hair and doing exactly, we didn't want to do what our parents did. So is this anything new? No. It's the perception of how we interpret what we see and hear that becomes the issue, and the agreement or disagreement. Now, a disagreement, in a sense, is an agreement. And it's all based on what you see, what you experience, and so on and so forth. So in looking at a particular aspect of the business, and I was looking at it from the standpoint of writing to a general audience, one of the factors that is most important about this, and you've heard me say this before, it's no longer about you in the sense of you're in that you're in the business. You've made that decision. This is something you've made a decision to do and participate with, and with the idea of achieving what it is that you want to achieve. So that's your decision, and it's based on your circumstances, and it's based on your perception. It's based on what you see, what you understand, what's going floating around in your universe, and so you've, for some reason, taken this on as a solution to something going on in your life, whatever that is. It could be health, it could be money, it could be social, it could be friendship, it could be purpose, it could be responsibility. I mean, there's a myriad of things that it could be, but the bottom line is it's based on it's all based on you. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story here. When I first got involved, I was approached with an audio tape about a lady up in Portland that used the Mag Duo on her hands because she had a problem with her hands. And then after utilizing them, she felt relief and had mobility in her hands. That was the tape. And that tape started a revolution. Now, the revolution was based on a couple of things. It was based on an understanding of potential. It was based on, what could happen. It was based on workability. It was based on, providing a solution for what went on. Now, when I first heard that message, it didn't do anything. It didn't resonate with me. It didn't hit home. It didn't say, oh my God, I got to get one. It didn't do anything of those things. It was like my actual thought process at the time was, well, magnets. I mean, I thought of refrigerator magnets. And I thought, well, who's going to sell those things? And how, and then I thought about, well, maybe the guy that did the pet rock, he made a small fortune. So maybe you could make a fortune selling magnets, but it didn't do anything to create interest in my universe, in my thinking. And here's why. I was stuck somewhere else. And what I mean by I was stuck somewhere else, I had a problem elsewhere that I was trying to deal with. And so my perception of that was what I was looking at. So I really wasn't looking at what he was saying or what the message was or what the opportunity was, because I was stuck in a problem that I had, but I didn't see the relationship of solving that problem with that idea at that time. I want you to think about this one for a second, because a lot of times when we go out there to introduce this to other people, we take our stuff our story, our situation, our circumstances, and go, that's the message that goes out there. But you have to look at it, it's not about you, it's about, well, what's their situation? And how do you make that fit becomes the issue. We'll get to there. So I said, no, not interested. And because of a prior experience that the two of us had had in this industry, he thought I'd be good. So he thought I would be a good candidate for this business. It was his perception. It was his understanding. It was his observation of the past and some other experience we had. And at the same time, he's also building his business, which was made up of other people who are going to build the business. I mean, that's, if we understand the fundamentals of how this business works, it works when other people do things. So it doesn't work when you do something, it works when other people do things. Now, you really have to look at that one also. So if you want to make money, then product has to be bought by somebody else. If you want to make a lot of money, then you have to have a team of distributors that are selling products and developing customers and bringing other distributors. That's just the way it works. And so you have to look at that and understand that. So that's what he was doing with me. He was expanding his business and he was looking for somebody to join him that would go out and do what the business required you do, which was one, either sell products, or two, find other distributors to sell products. Now, I wasn't interested. So that was almost the end, and the story might never have started had he stopped. This is another very important aspect of persistence. So he persisted. Now, what he persisted with was fascinating, but he actually asked me what was going on in my life. And I told him, I said, you know, and his name was Clay, and Clay was a professional network marketer. So he was involved in several network marketing companies at the same time, not just one. Now, in our particular, you know, today that's changed. The companies usually don't like you to do that, and they have policies and procedures, but that was that's old school. And he said, you know, what's going on? I explained, I had this problem. I had this situation. I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I couldn't think. I needed to make money. And he said, well, man, you got to take a look at this then, because these guys, you above me, he told me what they did. And I almost fell off my chair at how much money they made in their first month. And so as a result of that, again, it's perception, right? It's you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You're going to hear this a gazillion times from Dave Rolfe, but it's so true, because it's what you perceive to be that's important for you. It's like a piece of art. It's like a movie. It's like anything else in life and living, in the sense of, I'm just going to mute people here. In the sense of what you experience, what you appreciate, what you see in it. For example, if I took off my screenshot here, I'll do that just to do this. Choose virtual background. I'm going to put none. Now I got this picture up here, and it's a picture of a duck. And I think many of you can see this duck. This is an artist. His name is Berard. And I collected every single piece of his art. And the title of this, the title of this painting was called Foreplay. Now, it's what's on that ball that becomes the issue of the title of this. And he was a great artist for depicting a circumstance and making it funny. So I've had people that look at that picture and said, you know, what planet are you from, Dave? what, what? And then I've had other people that laugh and see the same thing that I see. And in a sense, that becomes the message that is so important with what you're doing here, is to create that agreement and create the perception that they see, that they come to look at. Because again, let's put this in a real perspective that makes total sense. So we were educated, and most everybody is still educated on the basis of, you grow up in a family, you grow up in a home, you go to school, maybe you go to college, you get a job, you have a career, you then, expand, maybe raise your own family, build a house, whatever the case may be, do all the fun stuff that you want to do, then slow down, retire, and die. I mean, that's the game, right? And it's how we do that that becomes the issue that we have to deal with. So Nikken and network marketing is a choice. It's another way. Now, you could be an Uber driver. Now, what do you do as an Uber driver? Well, you go, you pick up people, you drive them to their destination, and you get paid for what you do. So you do an activity that creates a result, then provides you with a benefit. Now, if you have a budget that you're trying to create or reach, then you would figure out what you need to do. You could be a painter. And that means you could go out and paint buildings or houses or walls, or you could be an artist and you could create artistic things that then are exchanged or sold. But the reality for everyone is we need to have green pieces of paper or pieces of plastic. If you can see that, there we go, piece of plastic, there we go. That, or cryptocurrency, or whatever means to, which is an exchange. If you want a loaf of bread, you got to give something for that loaf of bread. Now, in the old days, you used to go out and work and maybe trade a chicken or some eggs for that loaf of bread. Well, as the population grew, that became quite cumbersome to see all those people walking around with chickens and eggs to get a loaf of bread, and what people walking around with a bunch of loaves of bread, because that was, but it was the exchange process that went on. And so somebody with a bright idea said, well, why don't we monetize this and put a value, and then use another medium that we can exchange. So you go to work, the boss pays you for a 2-week salary, or $2,500 or $2,000. It goes into your bank account today. It's a direct deposit. Then you use a credit card, you go buy what you want to buy. And at the end of the month, if you've got money left over, great. If not, then, that's it. Or you can borrow money. I mean, there's all kinds of solutions to this living life situation. So what we have is another way, another solution. But interestingly enough, this is not taught anywhere except in our arena. Now, there are books about it. You can go to the library, you can go to Amazon. I've written books on this subject. Many people have. There's ways to do it. There's not ways not to do it. There's been very successful people. There's millions, I think around 61 million people on planet Earth do network marketing right now, today. So there's a lot of people that do it. There's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 companies that use network marketing as a way to do business. So it's a way. Now, but what it doesn't have is structure or visibility per se. This is our visibility. Being in Toronto, seeing other distributors is our visibility. That's the reality. That's a reality of our business. You go to a meeting, you see other people, and they say, oh, there's somebody else that's doing what I'm doing. That's reality. Agreement. Okay, this is good. I like this. Okay, I'm going to stay in. And again, that's basically how it worked in the beginning. When I left the business for 3 years, from 1991 to the end of beginning of 92 actually, till 94, but it spanned those 3 years. And my business totally fell apart from where it was to when I came back. And I decided to rebuild it. And I thought, well, I'm going to do what I know how to do. I went and rented a hotel room, a hotel space where you put on meetings. I phoned a few people. I announced I was having a meeting and I showed up, and I think 3 or 4 people showed up. So I didn't have much agreement on getting people to that meeting, probably for a number of reasons. They didn't know what it was. They couldn't perceive what the message was. They didn't understand what they were being invited to. Well, a myriad of things. So I then said, okay, we need to change this. I called my sponsor, we sat down and we kind of looked at things and we planned and strategized. Now, again, this is a business. And in business, this is not a hobby. This is a business that operates like any other business does. It sells products and it has expenses and all of those kind of things. So if you plan and strategize solutions, you get more of what you want to get versus if you don't. And then, again, it's perception, reality, agreement, all those kind of things. So I only had 3 people at the meeting. That's not what I needed. That's not what I wanted. And I had experience seeing larger numbers at meetings before, so I wanted more. So I had to figure out what to do, how to attract more attention, what to say, what carrots did I have to dangle, what message did I have to put out there, and who did I have to communicate with. Those became very important aspects of participation and moving forward. Now, I did this and I did it every week for the next 3-4 years. And we ended up having hundreds of people come every Wednesday night to the Wellness Preview, which in the beginning started with none, just me. Now, what caused that to happen? What was the fundamental principle there that was worked on? And it was agreement. It was agreement. It was the agreement to participate. So we're all on the same page in the sense of living on planet Earth, working on survival, trying to accomplish what we want to accomplish, trying to experience what we want to experience, trying to perceive what we want to perceive. Now, I could send you to the internet right now, and you could start looking at the newsreels, and there's stuff there you want to look at, and there's stuff there that you don't. There's no question about that that's going on right now. There's stuff that's hard to perceive. There's stuff that's hard to look at. There's stuff that you got to say, you got to be kidding me that this is going on in the year 2022 with everything that we know. And you got these idiots over there blowing each other up. That doesn't make sense to me. But there's agreement on one side that should be happening, and there's agreement on the other side that it shouldn't. So obviously there's a disagreement, which then is still creating some form of reality, right? If we look at this country and we look at this population and we look at the income levels and poverty levels and people that aren't making it, there's a huge disparity of people that are making it and aren't making it. There's a huge number of people that need a solution that they can get their hands on. Now, whatever that solution is that's something that you have to work on. But what I want you to understand is we're communicating to them is the main answer. And our job is to get them to see what it is that we have in a way that it's a solution to their situation in life and living. Because that's what it's all about, is life and living. So whether you work for Procter & Gamble or IBM or Ford Motor Company or Microsoft or Facebook or Google, if that's what you do, that's what you do, and you're doing it for a reason. You're typically doing it so they pay you and you go home with a paycheck so you can go out on the weekend and have a good time. Now, that's what we do too. We have a situation where if you do this right, this can change your whole life. This because of how it's structured, what it's made up of, and how it works. So you have to understand that so that you can communicate the right solution to the right person. Now, last week, I did an interview with Ruth Lowe. I think most of you know Ruth. And she had a solution that after COVID hit of how to go about doing this business from her perspective. And now my perspective was business building. Her perspective at that time was retail customers. Two different things, but in a sense, they're both the same thing. I never sold retail. I'm just being very honest with you. I didn't sell retail at all. I went after distributors, and if they didn't want to become a distributor, then offered them the opportunity to buy the product. So it was a sub-product of going after distributors only. Now, COVID hits. And we have an interesting situation because the world basically shut down. And everybody stopped and everybody was in confusion and everybody didn't know what to do and where to go and how to work and so on and so forth. So there was a huge problem that existed that needed solving, and she was in that same boat. And so she went to Zoom. She joined a number of groups on social media. She found the groups that she wanted to communicate with, and then she looked for areas that she could respond to and topics that she could deal with that were being posted. Now, I go back to my beginnings. We didn't have the internet. So we didn't have that ability to go somewhere and find groups of people to talk to. We had to go out in society and find those groups. Now, there were groups you could join, Toastmasters. There were, business groups that formed where you could go to meetings and meet with them and so on and so forth. You could. So for me, I'd just get out there in society, go to hotels, go to office buildings, go to restaurants, go to sports facilities, go anywhere where there were people, and then start a conversation. Well, that's exactly what she did. She went on social media and started conversations or joined conversations that ended up into other conversations. It was like one of my best stories, or not best stories, but a good story, was my neighbors, Ralph and Jerry. Now, he's building a house. I like construction. I've got a problem at my house. We start talking. The next thing you know, 3 years down the road, their platinum distributors helped me go to the top Royal Diamond, and we just had a riot together. Now, how did that come about? Well, it came about because he had a problem. He and his wife had a problem of lifestyle that once I found out what it was, I then provided them with a solution that fit that problem and provided them with a way to think about solving it. Now, again, this is critical. There's a take a look video on daverolf.com called Thinking in the Take a Look series. I think it's number 8, 7, whatever. It's really, this is a fascinating thing. You got to look at this yourself. Try and think about something you don't know anything about. I mean, just try and do that. It's pretty hard. Now, if you look at what thinking is a method of looking at information, evaluating that information, and making it work for what you need it to make it work for. Now, I have a little heater in my office, and I work at a desk, and there's no heat at the desk. Sometimes it gets cold, and I need to turn on the heater to warm myself up, and the knob's broke. So I looked at that and I said, huh. So I got a pair of pliers and I used pliers for a while to turn the knob, because that's all that I had at the time. And I thought, okay, now I can go to Google search this. So what do I look for? So it's replacement knobs, and then they had them for ovens and then different. So I finally found a pair that would work. I ordered them on Amazon and they came and I put them, they're too big. So now I've got I have a little tool shop in my garage. So then I had to take that and I had to think about how was I going to make it fit. Now, if I didn't have experience, if I'd never done this before, I would have had these things that were too big. They didn't fit. That was the end of it. Throw them out, move on. Would have probably been the solution. I work with some people, especially that are on the call today, that have a professional background in the same sense of their experience and knowledge gives them the ability to ascertain a situation and provide a solution. Now, because of their experience of knowing how to do this, it then allows them to hone in real quickly on what you're trying to accomplish. I did another video called Qualifying. And now, again, one of the things that I found most network marketers do is they never learned how to market themselves or this business or understood sales in general. And so they would go out with their sponsor would sign them out and said, okay, create a list and then go out and get them involved and make a mess and see what happens. And of course, they'd go out there. They wouldn't know what to say. They wouldn't know how to say it properly. They hadn't learned. They hadn't practiced. They had all this stuff. They didn't know how everything worked. And they got a lot of rejection. Well, who likes rejection? Nobody. But you can eliminate all of that rejection by understanding one simple little principle. Were they qualified to begin with? And here's what I found in my experience in all of my time in marketing and sales and moving forward was that if the person that you're talking to needs and wants what you have, and you have a friendly, way about who you are, and you're nice and you're pleasant and you provide all the information, 9 times out of 10, they're going to buy what you got. But if they're not interested in what you got, they're not. And so we don't spend the time to find out what people are interested in because we're too busy trying to hammer them on what we got. And so we end up with that thing called rejection. So you want to listen to that tape if you want to handle that situation. So what's the moral of this story? Well, the moral of this story is rather simple. Reality that can be perceived comes about by agreement. Now, the agreement that you want to establish with somebody else is based on what you want. So if I go back to my beginnings, my very first time that I ever saw this business, I ran into a guy, his name's Jim Jantz. He was a school teacher, and he became one of Amway's most, successful distributors in Canadian, and went to this meeting. And I'm the only person in the audience, and he's giving this presentation, and he said, Dave, just imagine this: you owned a Coca-Cola machine on every corner of every street. Every time somebody bought a Coke, you made a nickel. Well, I sat back in my chair and that was it. Game over. I just saw piles of nickels everywhere. I said, oh my God, what a concept. What an idea. Never heard of this before. And imagination, which we all have, ran wild. I had Coca-Cola machines everywhere. I couldn't stop thinking about Coca-Cola machines. Now, you get the message. And that resonated with me, hit me like a ton of bricks. I joined immediately. I went to work, blah, blah, blah. started my career. Now, it took me a long time to figure out how to do it properly, because that was based on who mentored me, who taught me. And this business is fraught. I'm going to say fraught. You want to look that word up, with all kind of personal ways that the business gets done. And that's what's taught: personality. And what the challenge with personality is, that's very hard to duplicate, because the personality is the personality, and we're all different. We all have different upbringings. The only thing that we have in common is we're all trying to survive on planet Earth the best way we can. That's it. Everything else is completely different. And it's based on experience and perception and agreements and disagreements and all of those things put together. So the bottom line is that you may like that piece of art on the wall, and the next person says, that is the worst piece of junk I ever saw. And a war begins, because that's what causes war, is disagreement. So the key then is to find out what the other person wants. Now, there's all kinds of ways that that can be done. I mean, you can paint all kinds of pictures. And so when I was playing this game, I looked at myself. I needed to make $8,000. That was my budget. So then I figured, okay, am I alone? Am I alone in that? Or are there other people that need that? And then I had qualifying, I had thinking. So I started to think about this, and I said, okay, interesting. So if I need that, there must be other people that need that. So I need to find that group. The Ruth Lowe concept. She found groups that she could communicate with. And when she found those groups that she could communicate with, she then became able to create a reality through agreement. And then now the end result of what Ruth did, after 3 years, she won Team Tai Chi 3 years in a row. And she's got an income that's pushing over $40,000 a year as a result of that style, that game, that way. So from the perspective, and when I looked at that and I said, oh my God, I never looked at that. Because what I looked at was simply building the business. But let's look at it as that as well. What if you had 5 people like that in your group? That's how it's made. And do you think there are enough people that would like to do that? Absolutely. So again, the key to this is finding what's important to other people, finding out what the problem, challenge, issue, desire, concern is, and then giving them a solution. Now, here's what you can't do. You cannot solve somebody else's problem. They have to solve their own. That's the way it works. And again, every time somebody's tried to solve somebody else's problem, it always fails. And there's so much history about this in society. It's ridiculous. But anyway, that's the scene. So what you can do is provide the information. So Ralph and Jerry had a problem. She worked in corporate America. He was retired, working at home, building their dream home. They wanted to be together. What do you do? So I gave them a solution. They looked at it, and they looked at the solution, and I showed them how they could get this done. So I provided them with the knowledge, and I told them what I would do to help them to get that job, and they understood that. She was willing to do the work that was necessary, and she went to work. She got the job done. And away we go. The rest is history. Now, you can't sell this business. You can't sell the products. All you can do is provide them as a solution to the situations you run into. So you want to create a big business, you want agreement on that, then go find a number of people that agree with you and want to do the same thing. And that's what's going to make it work. So hopefully this helps you with your business plans and moving forward in the future. We'll end the recording now, and then we'll get into our usual Q&A. Hang on. And thanks for being here today, and we'll see you on the next Smart Networker.